Pas de soleil, pas de soleil, pas de soleil.
Hey guys, welcome to another video. In today's video, I'll be doing a January wrap-up of all the books and movies that I read and watched during the month of January. This will be a new sort of thing that I'll be doing hopefully every month. If I do read and watch a handful of books and movies each month, I will be doing a wrap-up video for books and movies. I don't know, I've added the movie element to this channel because it is something that I've always loved as well as books. I was really into movies all my life, so I am probably more of a film junkie than I am of a book nerd. So I don't know, I'm meshing the two loves of my life together. You would have seen a few like trailer reaction videos last year if you have been following this channel. I am going to be meshing the two together, mainly because I'm a pretty slow reader, and so I haven't been able to catch up with a lot of reading material, and every time I try to do a wrap up, I don't have a wide variety of things, so I decided to incorporate movies. I don't watch a ton of movies every month, but I do have like a handful. So without further ado, we'll get straight into the January wrap up. First things first, I've got my bubble tea. This is from Cha Time. I don't know, do you guys love Cha Time? Please, if Cha Time can sponsor me, I swear I will drink this in like every single video for y'all. I did end up getting just the standard peach green tea with lychee jelly. Yeah, it's been a while though. I usually drink milk tea, but it's been a while since I've drank fruit tea. Oh my gosh, this is the best. Okay, I swear I'm gonna move on. So we're gonna start off this video with books. So the very first book that I finished in the year of 2020 and also in January was A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. Now if you've watched any of my videos before, you know that I love Uprooted by Naomi Novik. So this was definitely one of my most anticipated book releases of 2020, even though I didn't read it in 2020, but I ended up really enjoying it. Okay, so there are a few things that this book has been criticized for. There was some book drama that happened with this book, but nothing that I personally was that offended by. There was like little small mini controversies with this book, but I think nothing that overly offended me. And I think the thing that people were kind of sensitive about and were criticizing this book about, I believe Naomi Novik kind of edited that part out, I think, because when I was reading this book, I was kind of actively kind of searching for that particular part, and I don't think I saw it. Maybe in every single reprint of this book, they've decided to take that bit out. It was a very, very minor thing, and I don't think it took away from my reading enjoyment and my reading experience, but I also think that this was slightly edited so that part wasn't in it. Overall though, I really enjoyed this book. This book has been hit or miss for a lot of people on the booktube community, but I really liked it. I don't know if this is going to be a duology or a trilogy, but I kind of want this to be a series. I don't know, I love this world, it's so intriguing. I have to agree with a lot of people, this is kind of like an info dumpy first book. There's so much exposition, there's a lot of like explaining, so there is that. So it is kind of a semi-slower book, and a lot of like the exciting things happens in like the last quarter of the book. And this ain't a very long book either, and so I know a lot of the criticism is that it felt so long. There's a lot of explaining of the magic and how this world or like the school itself works, but I did appreciate all the explanation and the world building because I'm excited for the sequel now that we have a lot of the knowledge of how this world and how the magic of the school works. I am excited to see where the story goes from here. Also, the sequel is being released like less than a year after the release of this book, which is exciting, which means I don't need to wait that long. I think it's gonna come out in June or July, I believe. I rated this one, I think 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I just had a fun time. I very much liked the main character that we follow, Elle Higgins, and also her actual name is Galadriel, and that Lord of the Rings reference just speaks to me. Anyway, aside from the fact that she has this dark power to destroy the world, she is spunky, she is rude, she's sick of everyone, she just has a I don't care sort of attitude, and it is just so fun to read a main character that's kind of got that attitude, especially in a magic school kind of setting. You know how all kind of magic school stories tend to start in the first year and kind of experiencing how the school works and kind of exploring their kind of school years with the main character. But this book starts out in the 3rd year of this character being at this school, so everyone kind of knows how the school runs. It's not a surprise how deadly this school is. So it is kind of interesting to throw the reader into the middle of, like, I think it's the last year before our main character is in the senior year, and so it's interesting the timeline that we get thrown in. You're not learning straight from year 1, you're like straight into year 3. You're kind of thrown into a world where these characters are already familiar with the environment, with how the school works and all that. So it is interesting, but at the same time I feel like that is the reason why there's a lot of excessive explaining of what's going on. Another little criticism I have is that none of the other characters are very much fleshed out. So we love our main protagonist. She has the most personality. There are a plethora of other characters in this book, but none of them really stick with you. I did like a few of the characters that are in this book, but they don't get fleshed out, they don't get developed at all, and I hope in the sequel that we do see more of them, that we do see some development, we do care about them somewhat. And so yeah, I don't know. Oh, I forgot to explain about the story. So A Deadly Education is set in a magical school. We're following our main character, Elle, and she is pretty much in her 3rd year of this school. And the interesting thing about this school is that there's no teachers. All these students with like magical abilities get thrown into this school, and pretty much the education is kind of self-taught because there are no teachers there, and you have to basically survive. The school has a lot of things that are trying to kill them, a lot of different monsters called Malefics? Ah! Oh my gosh, my phone, sorry. They just call them Mal. They're like little monsters that try to kill students and eat them because apparently mages, I'm just gonna call them mages, like humans with magical abilities. These monsters are pretty much drawn to these magical humans because of the powers that they have, and it's a thing. The school itself does provide education for these students, but you kind of need to self-teach and you kind of need to work with the other students. Definitely a give and take attitude in the school. So if you have something to offer, you can trade stuff, and it's a whole situation. It's very interesting. There's a lot of different elements that intrigued me and I want to see more development on. I love how the school is pretty much like a give and take situation because like there are no teachers. You really have to be resourceful, and on top of that you've got these monsters that are trying to kill you, and so you got to kind of make friends in order to have like a group of mages that you can rely on to protect you. On one side you've got like normal kids that come from like relatively normal families, and then you've got these elite kids that are from these elite families in the magic world. So these kids have advantages, they have more privileges and whatnot, and so there is kind of like a hierarchy kind of dynamic as well. It's very interesting, and Naomi Novik's writing is beautiful, although this book was definitely more factual, a little less flowery than like, let's say, Uprooted. Anyway, I think I've been talking about this book for way too long. All you need to know is that I enjoyed it. I had a fun time. I'm very excited for the sequel that's coming out later on this year, and I'm into it. The second and final book that I finished in the month of January was A Wish in the Dark by Christina Suntonvat. Sorry if I did not say that name correctly. I think the author is Thai. First of all, check out the cover for this book. Isn't it stunning? I don't know. I found it stunning. It's got this watercolor aesthetic and it's just so pretty and so colorful, you know, looks so magical, and all these different lights, they come into play in the story. This book is basically a Les Miserables retelling in Thailand, and it's a middle grade. What? Just what? That sounds amazing. And it was. I adored this book. I already thought that I was gonna like it, but after reading it, you know, there was just so much heart in this. It's been a while since I've read anything middle grade, and I don't know, I don't read middle grade as often, but after reading this, I want to check out some more middle grade because this was amazing. It was so beautifully written. This book is set in a city called Chitana. This city is run by a governor. I don't know if the governor ever gets a name. So he runs the city. Years ago, there was this great fire that destroyed the city, and this person came along who is now the governor, gave the city light, so they never had to use fire ever again. And so the city is run by this governor's magical orbs that give light, and each different colored orbs do different kind of things. But you are following our main protagonist, Pong. He essentially at the beginning is in this orphanage, wait, not orphanage, in this, not a orphanage, but it's kind of like a school within a prison. So you start off the book in a women's prison, but there's a section of this women's prison where children of the women who are in prison attend in this side of like the prison. These kids kind of grow up in a semi like prison, but not really, but is. Anyway, it's a whole ordeal. So Pong grows up essentially in one of these centers, and in somehow and some way, which I won't say, he kind of escapes his life and he's kind of on the run. And so this book is split into two different perspectives. You're following Pong, and the other character is Nok. Nok is the person who runs the prison's daughter, and she is adamant about catching Pong. And so it's kind of like this cat and mouse situation where Pong is on the run and trying to escape this life, and he wants to start anew. And then you've got this character Nok, who's very much determined to catch Pong and is kind of like an uptight girl who wants to do everything right, and she's by the books. And so when this kid escapes from this prison, she will not let him go. So she is in pursuit of him. That is like the basic plot line, but there are so many things in between. It's such a magical book. The magic is somewhat very subtle at the beginning, but it comes to play later, and it was just a stunning read. I would highly recommend people to pick this up. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and I highly recommend. This is a book that I feel like not a lot of people know about, and so I do want to kind of put the word out there. A Wish in the Dark. It's a beautiful read, and I very much enjoyed it. It had a Southeast Asian setting, and it was just stunning. Also, another thing is that the food descriptions, I'm telling you, this book made me hungry. Every time I picked this book up, I was reading at nighttime and I was like getting hungry. I'm like, stop, but also don't stop, because like these descriptions of food, oh, it's so good. Anyway, moving on. Love the book, highly recommend. It's such a beautiful read, and there's so much more than just what I told you. It's an adventure, and in the end, there's kind of a feel-good sort of message, and so I don't know. I recommend. We're gonna move on to the movies that I watched in January. So, like I said, I didn't watch a lot. I don't watch a lot of movies. I don't read a lot of books because, you know, full-time worker. A lack of time is what I should say. Anyway, so I'm gonna just open up my Letterboxd account. Oh no, I gotta sign in. Are you serious? Sorry, I got a new phone and it's logged me out of every single account. So I will be linking my Letterboxd account down below, as well as all my other social media accounts. But yeah, this is something that one of my friends just told me about, and I've been obsessed. It's basically a Goodreads but for movies. So take that as you will. Wait, take that how you see fit. what? Let me go to my diaries. Okay, so the very first book, what even? Let me just, this is so good. I don't think I ate today. No wonder I'm like downing that like crazy. Okay, so the very first thing that I watched in 2021 was Overlord. This is directed by Julius Avery. This was released in 2018, so it was a few years back. I follow a few people that do like horror movie recommendations, and this got pretty good ratings. It's basically set in the 1940s in France. You're following a group of soldiers who get dropped off into this zone. They have a certain mission to take out some tower in this village or town, and then they soon discover that there's something a lot more sinister that the Nazis are doing in this town. So they're basically doing some sort of experiment. It's somewhat of a mystery. Like the first like act of the movie is very much like a war story, so you don't know what kind of thing is going on, but it gets really intense. And let me just tell you, if you are squeamish with any sort of gore and violence, this movie is not for you, because things get disgusting. Like, I did not expect such gory things. Like, I was so shook. I was shooketh by some of the visuals that I saw, but it was a very much entertaining film. Some of the shots were very well executed, and the only thing I remember hearing about the first scene to this movie is kind of like that battle scene in Edge of Tomorrow. Edge of Tomorrow is one of my favorite movies when it comes to sci-fi, but yeah, it's that scene where Tom Cruise gets dropped off into that battle zone. It's crazy. I loved it. So yeah, I heard that the first scene of this movie, of Overlord, kind of is reminiscent of that. So that got me excited. And was I prepared for what this movie was actually about? No, I was not. But I was very much surprised, like pleasantly surprised. This isn't really a horror. I think the horror element is very much like the violence and gore that is a part of the movie, and the disturbing aspect of these experiments. So yes, so it's somewhat, yeah, it's kind of horror, but it's kind of like horror action blockbuster. There wasn't many well-known actors in this. Like, I did not recognize anyone except for John Marigo. Yeah, so him, and then the main antagonist of this movie, who is from Game of Thrones, Pilu Asbeck. There is this guy called White Russell, who's apparently Kurt Russell's son. Amazing. Otherwise, don't know. I don't know why I decided to watch it in Jan, but I did, and I had a fun time. It's violent, so trigger warnings for that. In fact, if you get triggered by violence and gore, don't watch it. It is very much something that I was expecting it to be violent, but yeah, this is like body horror violence. I gave this one a 3.5 stars out of 5 on Letterboxd. So there's that. The next movie that I watched was Ever After. This movie is definitely a rewatch because it's my childhood like favorite movie. I pretty much watched this as a nostalgia factor. I saw it on Disney Plus and I was like, oh my gosh, I love that movie when I was a kid, and so I watched it. So Ever After stars Drew Barrymore. Bless her, queen. I love her, and in this movie she looks stunning. Anyway, so I am in the process of editing and hopefully uploading the movie reaction video for this movie. This is directed by Andy Tennant, and this was first released in 1998, so it's a 90s film. I don't think that this movie is particularly great when it comes to movies. I gave this movie 3.5 stars out of 5, mainly because like you can't take the nostalgia away from this movie. I loved it as a kid and I still loved it now. When I watched it, I was like, oh my gosh, like the memories, the music, oh my gosh, that iconic scene with her dress and the wings, and it was magical. She was beautiful. In terms of stories, it's a bit cheesy. It's supposed to be a Cinderella retelling or reimagining. It's set in the 16th century. The accents were not that great, let me say. It's very over the top. There is definitely not much to say here. I enjoyed it for what it was. I would recommend it if you haven't seen it, but don't expect anything groundbreaking. It's kind of just a feel-good movie. Is it a feel-good movie? I find it a feel-good movie. Maybe it's just a nostalgia factor and I just loved it from my childhood, and so I loved it now. But yes, the next movie that I watched in January is probably my favorite movie. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh. I am so excited for this studio because I'm gonna be watching the other two movies that were produced by the studio. The visuals, the animation is so stunning. Okay, so I ruined it. It's an animation. Can you guess? This came out in 2020, so it is a 2020 release. And it is Wolfwalkers by Tom Moore and Ross Stewart. I don't know how to describe this movie, so I'm just gonna read the letterbox description of this movie. It says, "Be fierce, be wild, be free. In a time of superstition and magic, when wolves are seen as demonic and nature and evil to be tamed, a young apprentice hunter comes to Ireland with her father to wipe out the last pack. But when she saves a wild native girl, their friendship leads to her to discover the world of the Wolfwalkers and transform her into the very thing her father is tasked to destroy." Oh, that summarized it very well. This movie, first of all, I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I loved it. It's my new favorite animation. This movie was just so beautiful. The animation style is very unique. It definitely has a more European-esque style. It's not traditionally Western. Honestly, like every single shot of the movie is so artistic and so beautiful. It's one of the most stunning animations that I've seen in recent years, and I've seen a lot of animation, so loved it. No words can describe how much I love this movie, and it had a lot of heart to it. So it did have a lot of darker themes in it, but overall it was very whimsical. It was very like folklore-esque. It's definitely set in like the Middle Ages, so it has a very Celtic vibe to it. I just loved it. It was so beautiful. Like, it had so much heart in it. I love like nature related stories, so it had a lot of that element, and I don't know, it had a very stylistic, cool animation look. I was swept away by it all. And on top of it, I love stories about friendship, and it had the most beautiful, wholesome story about friendship. Wolfwalker really spoke to me. This movie is definitely going to be one of my favorite movies of the year, for sure. And I am definitely intrigued to check out more things that are produced by this company. It was so beautiful. I teared up, and I would highly recommend Wolfwalker. It had been a while since I've done like a Friday night movie night with my friends, but I did that the other day, and we watched The Killing of a Sacred Deer. This was released in 2017. It is by the director Yorgos Lanthimos. This guy is a Greek director, and he has done a few movies in the past that I am familiar with but haven't watched. I know a lot of people love The Favorite, so that was one of the movies that he directed recently, and I've yet to watch that movie. I have a feeling I'm going to really like that movie, but yes. Killing of a Sacred Deer. I remember there was a friend of mine that was explaining this movie to me, and she was like, I felt sick while watching this movie. And I was like, what? In what way? But don't spoil it, because I want to watch it. You know, life happens, and I never got around to watching it. And then I was at my friend's place. We didn't even mean to watch this movie, but we were supposed to watch some other movie. And then we ended up agreeing to watch Killing of a Sacred Deer. So we watched it, and it was an interesting movie. Definitely had like Greek mythology elements. It's kind of magical realism. I don't think it's supposed to be taken in a way where this magical factor, how is it happening? Does this person have like magical abilities? No, it's not supposed to be taken literally like that. It's supposed to be all kind of metaphorical in a way, but it was crazy. It was an interesting experimental film. If you haven't watched it, you don't know about it, it's basically following our main character. He's a cardiac surgeon, Dr. Stephen Murphy, who's played by the beautiful Colin Farrell. This movie also has Nicole Kidman, who's his wife. He's this renowned cardiac surgeon. When you're viewing it from the outside, he has this perfect, wholesome family life. It seems like he's got everything. But there is this other kid who he's meeting up with, and it's kind of a little bit mysterious why he's meeting up with this kid. Gradually, you kind of find out what the deal with this kid is and why he continues to try and meet up with this kid. There is this other darker element that's at play, and so this kid kind of slowly infiltrates this guy's life and his family, and it gets crazy, it gets dark, You don't know what's going on at first, but when it's all revealed, you're just like, I'm kind of confused, but at the same time, I don't really care. Let's just go with the flow. It's kind of got like a Greek mythology that's retold in a modern day setting, and so it's definitely interesting and I would recommend it somewhat. It had a very visually artistic style. It seems like this director, according to my friend, because I haven't watched any of his other films, he likes to do like wide shots, and a lot of this movie, there's a lot of wide angles and it's just visually very interesting. The only thing about this movie that I didn't really like is the characters. Like, I felt nothing for any of the characters. They're very much all very unlikable. Like, I pretty much hated every character, and I did not care one bit what happened to any of these characters. So when there's like emotional family turmoil going on, I'm like, whatever, I don't care. Also, very interesting, this movie kind of had a sterility to it. Like, the characters, the dialogue is very disconnected. There's very much no emotion when it came to the dialogue between characters. It was very weird. Like, there's an unsettling feeling when characters are kind of talking to each other. It didn't seem genuine. I don't know if that's supposed to be intentional. Probably was intentional by the filmmaker, and that's the reason why I didn't really connect to the characters that much. Also, another interesting thing is there's a few kind of dark comical moments where it's in a situation where it's not that funny, but I found it funny. So I don't know if it's intentional humor, but it's like dark humor. And so I don't know, it was funny in a way, but I was a little bit disturbed at the same time. And so there is that. Interesting director. I am curious about his other films. I definitely feel like I will like The Favorite by him, and there's another movie called Lobster that I've wanted to watch for a while now, but yeah, I might check those movies out later on in the year. Killing of a Sacred Deer. Did I enjoy it? It's kind of like a so-so kind of movie. I don't really recommend it that much, but in terms of like visual style, also I like the Greek mythology integration into the modern day world retelling. I did enjoy that element. The ending, it's a little disturbing how everything happens, and it's probably intentional the way these characters were portrayed. So I don't know, I gave it a solid 3 out of 5 stars. I'm kind of in the middle about it though. Like, I didn't quite enjoy it that much, but I did appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? So yes, those are all the stories that I kind of consumed during the month of January. I hope you guys enjoyed. Have you guys checked out any of the books or movies that I consumed? What are your thoughts about it? I'm very much happy that I read these 2 books because I had a fun time with these. The movies that I watched were very much different from each other, but in some ways I enjoyed all of them. My favorite was Wolf Walker. Highly recommend that movie. It's stunning, it's beautiful. Please watch it. It's the best. Anyway, that is it for today, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed my thoughts and feels on some books and movies that I consumed for this month, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!